Hello again. Welcome to Southeastern 14's SEC Daily. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined today by Blake Lovell. Blake, good to have you back. I mean, you didn't go anywhere, but you and I hadn't done a show together in a long time, and just the two of us. Looking forward to that today.
Yeah, let's not act like I've been sitting back, propping the feet up, doing absolutely nothing. No, I know it's been a while since I've been on here, but obviously we've had a lot of stuff to do, in addition to me just being on screen, a lot of other things to do and getting our basketball stuff ready for the start of the season next week. And so, but we've got an interesting topic today. So I figured, why not jump back on when everybody is completely losing their minds over some of these rankings. So
Absolutely. And looking forward to basketball stuff coming up. Got an exciting partnership to announce. We're now a part of the Believe Network. So if you're a person who listens to audio podcasts more than YouTube, you can find us there. And then, Blake, we're very excited about that. So you have other places now to get our offerings to.
Yeah. Again, we really appreciate them. Should be a great partnership for everyone involved. And it's going to be a lot of exciting stuff, I think. As we always say, we're not backed by big time, ESPN, all those places. So we're always looking for ways to partner. And this was a great opportunity and we're excited about it. So again, if you are on YouTube, you probably listen to podcasts too. And so go to any podcast app you use. You can find our stuff there. Search for Southeastern 14, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything else you use. We're probably there. So just keep that in mind. I know a lot of people, sometimes kind of a split audience. Some people just want to use YouTube. Some people want to use podcasts, but we are everywhere. So take your pick on which you would prefer to digest everything we have to feed you here at Southeastern 14. I should have been the CHOMPS transition, but
yes, we should have. But missed opportunity there. Well, we did not miss an opportunity yesterday to preview the college football playoff rankings, and I thought we got a lot right there. We will go through today what the committee did that we thought got right, what we expected, what surprised us, what we learned. So we're going to unpack all that here starting shortly. Always looking for sponsors. Email caroline.smith at southeastern14.com if you were interested. Today's show presented by BetOnline. The last of the major pro sports leagues is kicked off, and BetOnline is your top spot for all your NBA action this season and college basketball too, Blake, right? I mean, there's some games coming up next week.
Some games coming up.
We'll be talking about them. With MLB postseason, NFL, and college football, and the NHL in full swing, BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport anytime. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. College football playoff was revealed last night, the first rankings, that is. And Blake, first thing that grabbed my attention, the committee did indeed lean resume over opinion in terms of its number one ranking, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes. We pointed out yesterday, you can say Georgia's the best team in the country or Michigan or whoever, but I think the facts were that Ohio State had the best resume. We wondered how much weight that would carry with the committee. As it turned out, it carried a lot of weight because that is the primary reason the committee put Ohio State at number one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, some people thought they just put Georgia there by default because that's where they've been. But many other people, yourself included, thought that if they just went by, overall resume in this season, which is what the criteria is supposed to be, you could certainly make the argument that Ohio State should be there. And I saw a lot of people doing that by the time we got to Showtime. So, yeah, I mean, interesting. I think now, if you just want to project ahead, obviously, yes, it means something to see where the committee has each of these teams right now. But if you project ahead and try to figure out, okay, if both teams go undefeated the rest of the way, does it stay that way? Does it flip? I think that's where everyone has started to kind of break down schedules on Twitter and such and figure that out. Of course, the biggest game left for Ohio State, they go to Michigan. Then, you'll have a Big Ten championship game in there. And then, of course, Georgia, you've got multiple top 15 games left, right?
Yes.
So you've got Missouri, you've got Tennessee, you've got Ole Miss. You're going to have a top 15 game probably in the SEC championship. So if Georgia goes unbeaten the rest of the way, I'm just going to tell you right now, Georgia's going to be the number one team in the rankings heading into the actual playoff. So, yeah. But again, these things, they change week to week. They are what they are right now, but I was not stunned to see Ohio State won by any means.
No, nor was I, of course. Now, look, there's other criteria. Boo Corrigan, the chair, said he cited the full body of work was important. In other words, yes, we're looking at resume, but we're also looking at, I guess, what kind of team is this? Call it the eye test, call it whatever you want to call it. But look, if it were just resume based, Michigan would not have been in the top three. Again, this tells you that the committee is using some, I guess, common sense. The computers, the ones that I look at, all have Michigan as the best team in the country by about 2 points over anybody else in the field. The same thing kind of got applied to Georgia. Georgia not as high in the computers I look at, but strength of resume, Georgia number 7, Michigan 9. And yet you saw those teams number 2 and 3 in the playoff. So those things did matter too.
Yeah. I mean, look, the Michigan conversation, are any of us surprised? Right. I mean, I think, right. Because like you said, you had them, where would you say had them? I forgot. You had them at 5th,
I had them 5.
Right? Yeah. So they wind up at 3. I don't think that, is surprising, but the whole thing with Michigan going into the season, I think when we had this discussion early in the season, we all gave our college football playoff picks. And I think one of the reasons why we all had Michigan in there, right?
Yeah.
I think we all had Michigan at 2. Before the season, we made our picks, and I think we all had Michigan at number 2. And the reason was because we said we thought they had the easiest schedule, just on paper, perhaps. I'm not saying it's easy because you still have the matchups against, the teams that we discussed. But still, I mean, it just felt like there was a path there. And if you're banking on the most likely candidates to make the playoff, that was our argument, was looking at it just from that standpoint. It really hasn't played out any differently, right? I mean, I don't think the schedule has just all of a sudden gotten significantly harder. It's kind of been about what we thought it would be. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think look, if I'm just kind of going all over the place because there's plenty you can react to with this thing, but I thought the most interesting thing to me would be the 4 or 5. And I think you expected it to be Florida State or Washington. In what order was probably the biggest question. And so, I think that is probably interesting just to see kind of where things stand right now with that. And again, you can certainly project ahead, look at schedules and such to figure out who would be there at the end. But I was most curious to see the 4 or 5, and I was pretty much assuming that it would be one of Florida State or Washington. So
yeah, which it was. We'll get to that in a second. 2 things on Michigan. Boo Corrigan said something interesting. The sign stealing scandal that is taken a lot of the college football news cycle over the last week. Boo Corrigan said that did not matter. So know that going forward. Now, I don't know if that changes. The other thing we said about Michigan yesterday, and this is the question we had, how would the committee treat Michigan? Because best win for the Wolverines so far, take your pick. Home win over Rutgers, win at Minnesota. Not great compared to the rest of these teams we're talking about, but the committee saw Michigan as a strong team, and that is what won the day in terms of getting Michigan at number 3. Okay, Florida State and Washington were placed that we had a lot of debate. I had Florida State in. I had Washington also in at 4 over Michigan. But here's the thing, and Bill Hancock basically said it without making a direct comparison. He said Washington, because of its play in the last couple of weeks, was a notch behind that group. Washington has struggled with Stanford and who else recently? The last 2 weeks have not been pretty. Washington won, but did not win in spectacular fashion. Florida State, meanwhile, had that issue earlier in the year. Florida State is starting to take care of business a little bit more authoritatively at this point. The computers have Florida State about 4 points better than Michigan. Again, that's reflective of the way the teams have played recently. So both 8-0, both leading the conference. Washington had that big win over Oregon in Washington, but the committee basically said, hey, look, Florida State's been playing better football lately, and that's where we're going to make our decision. So plenty of room for either team to make up or falter there. But that was the reason, if you're wondering, in terms of why the teams were slotted where they were.
I mean, I can I can appreciate the committee saying we're going to go with the team that's playing better. I can appreciate that because I think that's what the ranking should be at this point. Yeah, and if you look at the remaining schedule, Florida State at Pitt, Miami, North Alabama at Florida. Not a lot to really sink your teeth into there. Then, of course, having the ACC championship game. Don't know who that will be to this point just yet, but and then Washington, of course, they've still got to go to USC. They've still got to go to Oregon State. They've got the game against Utah in there. So 3 straight games against top 20, 25 competition, and then the Pac-12 championship in that scenario. So again, that's what I try to look at is just projecting ahead. But of course, we all know how this works. Somebody goes and gets upset next week. All this gets thrown into pure chaos. And how many times, Chris? I don't know if we have the stat. It's highly unlikely. Actually, I know the answer to it, but highly unlikely that the 1 through 4 and 1 through 5 will be staying the same by the time we get to the end of the month. We just know that doesn't happen. So.
Well, especially since 2 will be playing each other. But your point on Florida State and the remaining schedule, I'm glad you brought that up. BetOnline yesterday, before it was announced, had Florida State with the best odds to make the playoff. The fact that FSU is in there and easily, I think, has the easiest path to wins of all the teams left. I mean, look at Florida. That could be tricky. Miami can show up and play at times too. But I think – and whoever they get in the title game. I mean, the ACC is probably number 5 out of the 5 leagues this year. I think you definitely have to like the position the Seminoles are in at this moment. Blake, this feels kind of like the net in basketball, where it's not just, RPI used to be, yeah, you're going to love this.
All right, I'm signing off. I'll see you guys next. Oh, my goodness.
Here's what I mean. The net takes into consideration margin victory and stuff like that. Whereas RPI used to just, did you win the game or did you lose? Didn't matter how much. And this feels like a situation where the committee is leaning maybe into some predictive analytics a little bit. So, all right, next thing that caught my eye, when I was doing my rankings, I had LSU ahead of Missouri. And the reason for that, one's a 1-loss team, one's a 2-loss team. LSU went and won at Missouri. LSU's played a tougher schedule. You'd think LSU would probably be ahead. That is not what the committee did. The committee made a very big line of demarcation between 1 and 2-loss teams. Everybody in the top 13, Blake, had either 0 losses or 1 losses. LSU was the first 2-loss team at number 14. 1 spot behind Louisville, 2 spots behind Missouri, and that feels pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty clear divide. Like you have the lines kind of drawn there in terms of, like you said, it's kind of where things are at. And I mean, again, I think Missouri's an interesting case right now because it's, like we said, I think you just kind of look at, yes, they have the 1 loss to LSU, but look at everything else, right? And I know that's the thing is, they beat Kansas State at the time, which was a top 15 team. Win at Kentucky, which at the time was a top 25 team, and all those kind of things. And now you get ready to kind of enter this gauntlet, which to me this is where things get interesting now. I think if you're Missouri, which of course it all starts with this weekend against Georgia, but if you are sitting here at 12, right? I mean, we love to play the what if game, which is what you have to do with these rankings is play the what if game. But I think it's pretty clear now. It's like, let's go say you go and win this game this weekend against Georgia. Let's just throw out a scenario here. Then it's like, okay, things get really interesting now because this is what they've played 8 games. They've won 7 of them. And their only loss is the team that's ranked 14th in this set of rankings. So, yeah, I think, again, we kept saying it felt like it was just taking a while for people to come around on Missouri. But once, things kind of took off there, you had to sort of look at it and say, all right, this is something that can support them being where they are right here as the number 12 team. Like, there's no question about it. And so people can say what they want and say, yeah, sure, they won some close games and all that. I mean, early in the season, but yeah, I mean, this team is, won by 17 against Vanderbilt, 17 against Kentucky, 22 against South Carolina. They obviously lost the game against LSU, which, they were leading and feeling good about themselves for a while there. Then they just, got Jaden Daniels on the other side. And so, yeah, I mean, this team is Jaden Daniels not being superhuman away from,
Yeah.
sitting here at undefeated. So, yeah.
Uh, that's a good point, because what this tells me, if I'm a Missouri fan, I'm going to this and I'm scared, like, okay, the computers don't love us. We're going to be underdogs in a couple games. If Missouri had been sitting down there at 17 or 18, I don't think they would have been that low, but you just never know what other people are going to do with you. The fact that Missouri got in at 12 and a spot ahead of Louisville, no less, which is also a one-loss team, that tells me that Missouri has a chance if it takes care of business and runs the table, which I guess we knew all along, but that just kind of affirms it.
Yeah, I think we knew that. And that's where I think as this thing played out, yes, you could make it pretty clear. Now, obviously, yes, Andrew. I mean, I think we all understand that. Sure, like they play their two toughest games. Well, two of their toughest games. Their toughest game comes up next. Put Tennessee wherever you want to put them in that category with LSU. But yes, like obviously they're going to be the underdog. We know this weekend against Georgia. Understood. Um, Tennessee next week. Don't know what that spread looks like. Obviously, Tennessee's had their number. We all know that. But just pointing out that to this point, I mean, they've done enough to earn the spot that they're in. But I mean, I don't think they've won 7 or 8 games, and I know again, strength of schedule is what it is. But hey, I mean, they're winning, and that's all you can ask for. But it's going to be hard to keep that going just based on the next 2 games. They're tough matchups. So,
Oh, okay, Blake, I've got something that I think people should maybe keep in their back pocket for later, because again, today does not really matter. This is all going to change. The 4 teams that are in there today, the likelihood that's going to be the 4 at the end, I would bet against. But you can glean some things about how the committee thinks. And here's one thing that I gleaned is I feel like the committee really valued the Pac-12. Maybe a little more than I thought it would. I'm going to give you 3 examples. Number one, we had debated. Well, first of all, you could say, well, wait, Washington did to get in. Yeah, but they kind of gave you the why. And when you're putting him up against another unbeaten team, I get that, okay? But I had put Oregon behind Texas and Alabama. The committee did the reverse. The computers have Oregon maybe about 1 point better than those 2 teams, so it's close to a pick 'em. I thought it was interesting that the committee slotted Oregon at 6 ahead of Texas and Alabama. So that's number one. Here's where I really got surprised. And again, this does not matter in the sense that this team is not going to make the playoff, but it does matter in the sense that it tells you maybe how the committee values a conference championship and values wins. I did not have UCLA in my top 25 at all. And I was pretty close on most of these. I think there was only 2 teams I had in my top 25 that the committee did not have in its. And UCLA was not only in there, but it was in there at 19. And you look at ESPN strength of resume, you go, they're number 34. The computer rankings in the predictive sense do not have them as a top 25 team. You dig into the resume and you look at the wins. Washington State at Colorado, Coastal Carolina, San Diego State at Stanford. Nothing in there that impresses me. The committee is looking at something that values the Pac-12 as a better league than I did in sizing this up. So that's significant. To back that up one more point, Oregon State was 4 points higher, or 4 spots higher than I had Oregon State. Now, I think Oregon State's a good team. It's a 2-loss team. Wins over Utah and UCLA, I think, and Cal are nice wins. But I thought it interesting that between having Oregon ahead of Alabama and Texas, having UCLA in there at all. And, oh, by the way, Utah was in there at 18. I wondered how they treat Utah. Utah had a couple of good wins, but also a couple of losses. To me, I feel like the committee is valuing the Pac-12 a little higher than I thought it might, and I will be interested to see where that comes into play at the finish line.
No, I mean, they got 6 teams in the top 20. When's the last time the Pac-12 had 6 teams in the top 20 in these things, right? I mean, I feel like that's not really happened a lot, but we said this was kind of the season it was setting up to be for that conference, which, talk about the conference imploding and all that. It's unfortunate because you do look at kind of this season and some of the success these teams have had, but yeah, how the committee thinks, it's very obvious. I think when you had, again, Washington and Oregon are back to back at 5 and 6, and we talked about Washington a minute ago and what they could be in line to do to move into that top 4. And so, yeah, I mean, you can certainly watch some of these teams, especially, like the USC games have certainly been interesting to say the least, but, they're all the way down there at 20. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there. There's clearly a preference for what the Pac-12 has done at this point, just based on, I mean, they got teams that got a lot of wins, and the heavyweights at the top are right there, knocking on the door of those top 4 spots. So.
Yeah, I did miss by more than 2 spots on most of these teams and where I had them compared to where the committee had them, but I missed on 4 spots or more, or 3 spots or more, I think on 4 teams in the Pac-12. Or 2
That's why
spots or more at least.
That's why we're not the Pac-12 or the Pac-4 or however many teams left, and didn't name our company after that. So yeah,
we could be Pac-12 after dark, could we?
It could be Pac-12 in the dark at this point. So
I like that. USC was, and here's another USC. I had USC at 23. They put them at 20. So again, another bit of evidence that whatever I'm looking at, the committee is looking at something that gives the Pac-12 a little bit of a boost beyond what I've got them. Okay, Blake, I'm going to ask you to pull up, because I think it's interesting. There was a graphic out last night how it would look, the playoff bracket today, under next year's format. I'll have you go ahead and get ready to pull that up or pull it up. I want to give a shout out to a couple of sponsors. MyPerfectFranchise.net. Are you sick of working for someone else, looking for a better life that you can live on your own terms, and someone who can help you understand the risks and rewards of that? Andy Ludicky of My Perfect Franchise is the guy that can do that for you. He'll help you find your perfect franchise based on your goals, your dreams, your skills, your financial requirements, your personalized American dream. He will educate you on the process, work with you every step of the way. No obligation. His services are free. Andy just sits down and tries to help you use your skills and your goals and get to where you want by matching you with a franchise that is a good fit for you. He's not trying to steer you to this place or that place because it's better for him. No, he's just trying to help you. He has done a phenomenal job helping hundreds of people do that. He's a good man, an honest guy. Call him 404-973-9901. Fill out a free questionnaire and get started. This podcast also sponsored by CHOMPS. Perfect snack after a workout, halftime, whatever. 9 flavors, so something there for everybody. Start with the free trial pack that has 6 different flavors and all 3 proteins. 9 to 10 grams of protein, 80 to 100, actually 60 to 100 calories per stick. Whole 30, keto, and certified paleo. Gluten-free, free of the top 9 allergens, no hidden harmful ingredients. Give CHOMPS a try today. Go to CHOMPS. Our promo code, I think, is SE14. That is in the graphic below. Get a 15% discount off your order. Help those who help the show and enjoy a good snack while you're at it. All right, Blake.
Hold on one second, Chris. Just quickly.
Sure.
I mean, since we are an SEC channel here, any just quick thoughts, a little more in depth on Alabama or Ole Miss?
Oh, good point. All right.
I think that may be important.
Well, I guess I didn't really have any thoughts because they were both ranked about where I thought they would be. Ole Miss being ranked at 10. Again, the question with Ole Miss, I don't think Ole Miss is going to make the conference title game because of the tiebreakers. Does the committee give a one-loss Ole Miss team, if it's to make it to that point, a pass into the title game or into the playoffs? I mean, look, you go and beat Georgia on the road, that might be good enough to do it. Alabama, kind of again where I thought Alabama would be. I think if Alabama goes unbeaten, wins the SEC, Alabama's probably going to be in. If it doesn't, Alabama's probably going to be out based on what it's done with 2 lost teams. That's my guess. Do you agree or disagree here?
It's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I think I think that's about right. Because look, I mean, Alabama, like I said, I think wound up exactly where expected around this range here. Maybe put them a spot here or there, but I think you kind of knew with the Texas thing they'd be where they were at 7, and then Alabama at 8. I mean, and so yeah, I mean, it's Alabama's got LSU this week, and what a win can do for them there. And like you said, kind of looking at the remaining schedule and seeing how it plays out. So, no, I just thought these were where you expected these teams to be. I just didn't know if there was anything interesting regarding maybe the path and just seeing how this plays out with those two specifically. So,
yeah, Sam made a comment here. 12th in the playoffs, Missouri being 12th in the playoffs, seems like the committee is really weighing in on losses. That's the way I felt too. Now, I don't know if 2 losses a month and a half from now are going to weigh the same as 2 losses now, because you're going to have teams playing title games. Again, the bulk of the tough part of the schedule for some of these teams is to come. I don't know if that changes with time, but if that is a good harbinger of what the committee is thinking, that a second loss is sort of disqualifying, then, Alabama and Ole Miss better not lose another one in that case. I mean, I don't think Ole Miss can lose the second game to get there anyway. Alabama potentially, depending on everybody else, but maybe that was a signal ahead of time.
all right, we'll pull this up and wrap up with this, Chris. I can find it here. So here you go. This is what you wanted referenced.
I think this would be phenomenal. How much fun would that be?
All right. So since there's people listening on the podcast feed, they have no idea what we're talking about. This is College Football Kings on Twitter, X, whatever you want to say, has put together just kind of looking at the the expanded playoff here at 12, and it's got Ohio State at 1 versus. I'm trying to see here, Chris. I guess we start at the bottom. Michigan versus Tulane in the 5-12. Alabama, Oklahoma in the 8-9, Oregon, Penn State, the 6-11, Texas, Ole Miss in the 7-10. You've got Ohio State is the 1, Washington is the 4, Georgia's the 2, Florida State is the 3. First 2 teams out would be Missouri, of course, there, and Louisville. And the whole point of this is, as mentioned in the tweet here, it's because Tulane beating Memphis for the AAC title would put them in that spot based on the guidelines. So even Missouri, like I said, at 12 doesn't work that way. So,
well, and I guess this is from yesterday. I don't know if this is projecting on his part, because obviously Michigan would be in that.
This is a projection. Hole. This is just kind of swap the two, and there you go.
Yeah, because the bye teams, we know who those would be. The 8-9 game would be Alabama and Oklahoma. The 11 would be Penn State and Oregon, and then Ole Miss and Texas would be the 10. I guess that's why I got confused, because it had all the matchups the way the committee ranked them. I just hadn't caught the Michigan Washington switch, but you make that, it's all the same. It'd just be Washington be playing Tulane in that first game, and Michigan would be sliding down into 3 with Florida State going in at 4. But either way, what I wanted to get at, I thought those first round matchups were fascinating, and so many of those, the spread on those wouldn't be more than a couple of points right now.
Yeah, it's coming. Expanded playoffs coming. So expanded SEC's coming as well here at Southeastern 14.
Expanded basketball coverage is coming here at Southeastern 14.
Yeah, I know everybody is in football mode, but basketball season starts next week, and we got a lot of stuff on the way. We put out our preseason power rankings this morning, so you can check that out on YouTube or podcast app. I will actually push you to the podcast app, because the video, of course, we had technical issues on the video for the preseason basketball power rankings one, but you can check that out on the channel. Everything else, all of our game previews for the Week 10 games, college football, SEC games, those are all up on the channel. Check those out as well.
Got another thing cooking in the kitchen for Southeastern 14. Not going to review that yet till we get it done, but Something hopefully we're going to be revealing soon that I think you guys will like. More work for Blake, as usual.
What do you know?
What do you know? But yeah, that's something we're looking forward to. We're looking forward to the last few weeks of college football, having you guys around. We do this show every day. We started at 11 Central and go to about 11:30, 11:45, depending on the day and the guests. So best way to get that, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell a friend. Those things help our analytics. Anyway, for Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you all. Have a great day. Thank you for watching Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.